So this year you've decided that you really want to start saving more money, but let's not lie, when it comes to saving, it can be really difficult, especially if you are a natural spender. And I'm talking from personal experience because not only am I a natural spender, but I also used to live paycheck to paycheck to the point where I ended up having about £16,000 worth of debt. But when I really learned how to save money, I was not only able to save enough to pay off my debt in about 18 months, but I was also able to have about £10,000 worth of savings and investments before I even got married. So what I want to do in this video is really share how I was able to save money and give you some tips so that you can start saving more money this year. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first tip I want to give you when it comes to saving money is to ask yourself, what am I actually saving for? Now, the reason why I mention this is because I feel like many of us make the mistake of just trying to save money because it's the right thing to do, or maybe it's because your parents told you when you were younger that you should be saving money, but they never really told you why you should be saving money or what you should be saving for. And as a natural spender, it's not going to make sense to me to start just saving money because it's the right thing to do, because I have no idea why it benefits me. And so in my case, I'm going to think that if saving money is just something that you should do, well, if that's not really going to benefit me in some way apart from it being right, all I'm going to end up doing is just trying to spend that money instead. And if we're being truly honest here, humans are selfish. So if you just tell us that you should just save money or that you should just save for retirement, we're less likely to do it because we're not really going to understand why it benefits us. Whereas if you get really, really clear as to why you want to save money, you are more likely to do it. So as an example, there was one time that I realized that I had saved money, but I didn't realize at the time. And that was when I was trying to save up for my first car, and I was also trying to save up for a new MacBook. So I had just recently got a part-time job and I really, really wanted to buy my first car. Now, I didn't realize I was saving at the time because I'd never really saved for anything. But what I was doing is that every time I got paid, I would put money aside in my bank account so that I could pay for the car. Now, let me tell you, after I paid for the car, I had no other savings left. So I really just didn't start saving until a few years later. But as an example, the reason why I was motivated to keep saving that money was because I was saving up for a specific purpose. I was saving up for something that was going to benefit me. And in this case, it was for the car and for my new laptop. So really take the time to think about what you actually want to save for. And this is something that I always dig deep with my clients, because that's going to be the motivation to help them save more. So for example, many of my clients would absolutely love to buy their first home because they envision that they're going to be able to bring their family up in there and they want to be able to make memories. Another thing they may be thinking of is financial independence. So they don't want to just have to depend on their employer to pay their bills. They want to be able to have the freedom and option to really do what they want to do, but not have to worry about paying for their expenses, because they know that those savings and investments will pay for their expenses instead. One of the biggest reasons why I wanted to save money was to actually have an emergency fund, because I had experienced not having money when an emergency came up. There was a time when my car had completely broken down, and because I had no money to fix it, I ended up having to ask other people to borrow money from them because I had no savings and my overdraft was also maxed out too. So because of that experience, I told myself that I do not want to be in that position again. And so for me, saving money became really, really important. So of course, thinking that saving money is a good thing is great, but how can you just level that up and really start thinking about how saving money can help you? Because if you are trying to save more money this year, really thinking about that clearly and really understanding what you want or what you even feel like maybe God is telling you to do can really help immensely. And if you're liking this video so far, then feel free to give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel, plus it's free. Now, the second thing I would recommend when it comes to saving more money is to actually plan out how much you might need to save. And the reason why I say this is because I feel like when you start to put numbers to something, it starts to make things real. So for example, if I was saving up for my first house, I'm not just going to tell myself, oh, I'd love to save up for my first house and leave it there, because I probably won't even know if I have enough money in my savings to buy my first house in the first place. Whereas if I told myself, okay, I need to save up 30k for my house deposit and fees to buy my first house, well then that's going to be completely different, and I feel like that's going to feel more real. So when you're planning out your savings, think about your numbers. How much are you going to need to save for that first house? How much are you going to need to save for that wedding? How much are you even going to need when it comes to retirement? Thinking about this in numbers will really then help you to start figuring out how you can realistically save for these things. And just a side note, it does not have to be the exact number. I always tell my clients that those numbers will probably change. You might find that actually the house deposit you need might be slightly higher or lower, or maybe when it comes to retirement, you might have a different lifestyle. So those can absolutely change, but I feel like just putting a number to something will just help start the process of you saving more. And once you gain momentum, even if things change, you can just learn to adapt and learn to save more money if it's needed. So remember, dreaming of saving for something is great, but when you start to put actual numbers to something, that's when things start to become real and you're more likely to save for it, because it also seems a bit more realistic too. Okay, so the next tip I have for you when it comes to saving money is now start to plan how you're going to save for that money. So figure out what tools you can use to start saving more. Now, personally for me, I think this is where a budget can be absolutely helpful, and I literally swear by budgeting. And I can already tell that you may not like budgeting for whatever reason, but I would say that the reason why you don't like it is because you have not necessarily found a budget that works for you, and also you may not understand how that budget is supposed to help you fulfill your goals of saving more money. And a big reason why I say your budget will help you to save more money is because, first of all, your budget will help you figure out realistically how much you can save in the first place. And I say this because when you actually do your budget, you will know your numbers. So you will know exactly what your income is and how much you are spending. And I know many of us are scared to do this because you're thinking, oh my gosh, like this is going to prove that I'm spending too much money. But only you will know if you are spending too much money, and your budget will therefore tell you. So when you actually write down all your numbers, that's when you can then decide whether you are spending too much and you want to change it, or whether you have enough money to start saving for your goals. And I can even use myself as an example. So when I realized that I had like £16,000 worth of debt and it was time for me to change the way I view my finances and actually take action, one of the first things I did was do a budget. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first did it, it took ages and it took really long, but I learned from that process, and now it literally takes me less than 10 minutes to do a budget. When I was doing that budget, I realized I actually had more money than I thought I did. I used to think that I could never afford to save money, or I could never afford to even give money away, because I felt like I was always living paycheck to paycheck and I had too many expenses. It wasn't until I actually did my budget and actually took the time to look at my numbers intimately and not guess, which I think a lot of us tend to do, right? For example, I could be thinking that I'm spending £40 a week on food when in reality I'm spending 80. Having the budget really gave me a realistic picture of how much I could potentially save to now start paying off my debt. And so after that process, I realized that after a few months that I could comfortably set aside about $500 a month to overpay on my debt, and that was on top of the minimum payments that I was doing. So in theory, I was saving over $700, but at the same time, it wasn't at a point where I drastically cut everything from my spending. I was still able to do things, but I also got to the point where I was no longer just spending my whole paycheck on anything and everything. Actually, what the budget helped me to do is then now start to think about, okay, when I'm spending my money, why don't I just actually spend money on things that matter to me, so that I actually have some money to save and put away. And that's exactly what I did. So if you then decide that this year is the year you want to save more, but you haven't really started the budgeting process, or you've been trying to budget but it's just not really been working out, what I would say is take the time to learn how to budget well and make that budget work for you, because it will help you in the long run. Because not only is it going to help you figure out how much you can save, but it's also going to help you to figure out what your next steps are. Because because once you've done the budget, you can then decide, actually, do you want to reduce some things in your spending, or would you like to simply make more money so that you can save more? You're only going to know that from your budget because you would have been looking at your numbers. Okay, so the next tip I want to give you when it comes to saving more money is to have a separate bank account for your savings. Now, this may seem simple, but I will tell you, this was one of the biggest things that helped me to save more, because what I realized is that when I was trying to save money, because my savings was in the same bank account as my spending, I was always in trouble. Why? Because as a natural spender, if I just saw money chilling in my account doing nothing, then I was likely to spend it. So when I really wanted to learn the skill of saving, I realized that in order for me to save that money and keep it in my savings without actually spending it, I would need to have a completely separate account. So when I first started saving money, I actually got a completely different savings account where I didn't even have the app on my phone. So if I wanted to log in to see how much I had in my savings, I would literally have to go on the browser and log in, remember my details, and then see how much savings I had. And so I was less likely to spend those savings because, number one, I couldn't really see it because I didn't even have the app. But also, number two, I could never be bothered to go into my bank account to take out those savings because obviously I would still have to log in. But also with those savings, if I wanted to take money out, it would take at least one working day. So I was less likely to spend my savings, really because I couldn't remember that I had it half the time, and also because I just couldn't be bothered with the effort of trying to go into my savings all the time either. And I will also say that this really just gives you the freedom to spend your money once you've taken care of your savings. So whenever I would get paid, I would transfer my savings to a separate account, but then I would also transfer some money into my own spending account. And what that meant was that I could just spend that money how I like, knowing that I had already taken care of my savings. And again, because I couldn't physically see those savings, I was less likely to spend it. So if you are someone who is like me, who is a natural spender, and you tend to dip into your savings if you see it in your account, I would definitely consider separating out your account. And you will then get to a point where you have mastered savings so much where now you can actually have savings in your account. So in our case, for example, we do have a separate savings account, but we also have savings in our current account as well in a separate pot. But because I've mastered savings so well, it doesn't affect me at all seeing those savings in our account, because number one, I'm really clear on what we're saving for, but also number two, I have just mastered the art of really understanding how to save money to the point where I no longer need to spend my savings. Now, if you feel like maybe this is the year that you really want to start saving more money because you might be saving up for a house, an emergency fund, or maybe you're simply just trying to become financially independent, but you maybe want a bit more support with how to actually go about doing everything, then this is definitely something I can help you with. So I've been able to help women not only save more than 25% of their income, but they've been able to do it where they actually feel much better with spending their money, and they also have a budget that they absolutely love and do not even feel restricted with. So if you are interested, all you need to do is book a free call just to find out more about one-to-one coaching with me. So I'll link more information up here for you and in the description below. But remember, when it comes to saving money, it's definitely not easy, and it's something that's not naturally taught to us when we're in school or when we're in the workplace either. So if you feel like you've been struggling to save money for a few years now, remember that you're not alone, but you can learn how to save money. So you can develop the skill of saving money. If I can do it as someone who is a natural spender who lived paycheck to paycheck, I'm confident that you can do it too. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, are you planning to save more money this year? I do post every Tuesday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week.